October 1347. 12 ships drift into the harbor of Messina, Sicily. Not sailing, drifting. When dock workers board them, they find sailors dead at the oars, faces blackened, bodies swollen with pus-filled tumors the size of apples. One man still breathes. He whispers 3 words before his eyes bleed black. God has abandoned us. This was Europe's golden age. Cathedrals piercing the sky, trade routes humming with silk and spice. A continent convinced it had tamed the darkness. The harbor master saw them first. 12 merchant ships from the Black Sea port of Kaffa. But something was wrong. No shouts of arrival. No merchants waving from decks. Just stillness. A sailor slumped against mast, jaw locked in rigor mortis rats scurrying over corpses, pools of black fluid congealing between floorboards. He found the captain in his cabin. Not dead, but worse. Groaning, feverish, his groin swollen with buboes so large they'd split his trousers. The man grabbed the harbor master's wrist with surprising strength. Captain said we fled Kaffa, the Mongols. They threw the dead over our walls. It's what textbooks won't tell you. Those 12 ships didn't just carry plague. They carried a secret so horrifying. Historians still debate whether it was the first act of biological warfare in human history. And the truth? It's far stranger than you imagine. But before we reveal what happened at Kaffa, you need to understand what this disease actually did to the human body. And I warn you, this is not for the faint of heart. This wasn't just the flu. This was a pathogen engineered by evolution to maximize suffering. 3 forms, 3 nightmares. First, bubonic plague. Within 24 hours of a flea bite, your lymph nodes explode into buboes, pus-filled tumors so painful, victims beg to be stabbed rather than endure another hour. A historian, Gabriella de Musi, said they died vomiting blood. Their buboes burst, spraying black fluid across rooms. Families sealed doors from outside to contain the horror, but the bubonic form was almost merciful. Because if bacteria hit your blood directly, septicemic plague. Your skin blackens while you're still conscious. Fingers, toes, nose, rotting alive, death in 24 hours. And then pneumonic plague, airborne. No flea required. 1 cough in a crowded market. And you've doomed everyone within 20 feet. Symptoms appear in 3 hours. Death in 2 days. This was the engine of the pandemic. But here's the mystery that kept medieval doctors awake at night. Why did this plague move faster than any disease in history? While smallpox crept across continents over decades, the Black Death devoured Europe in 4 years. It didn't spread like a disease. It spread like fire. London lost half its population in 6 months. Paris buried 800 bodies per day at the peak.
In Avignon, Pope Clement VI had to consecrate the Rhône River itself as holy ground because graveyards overflowed and corpses floated in the current. And the worst horror? The abandonment. Parents fleeing children, priests refusing last rites. One chronicler wrote, "A man might die alone in his bed for 3 days before anyone noticed, because everyone was waiting for their own turn. But all this death, all this suffering, leads us back to one unanswered question burning in historians' minds for 700 years. Where did it truly begin?" And the answer lies not in Europe, but in a siege on the edge of the Mongol Empire, where something unspeakable happened.
Spring 1346. The Golden Horde's Khan Jani Beg surrounds Kaffa, a wealthy Genoese colony on the Black Sea. For months, his armies batter the walls. But the Genoese hold firm. Until The plague arrives in the Mongol camp out within days. Thousands of Mongol soldiers writhe in agony. Gianni Beg faces catastrophe, his army collapsing, the siege failing. Then, he makes a decision that would echo through history. According to Gabriele de Musi's 1348 manuscript, the bodies of the dead were put into catapults and launched over the city walls, infecting everyone within. This is the moment that haunts historians. Did Gianni Beg intentionally weaponize plague? Modern scholars debate fiercely. Some call it the first biological warfare attack. Others argue plague was already in Kaffa via rats. A historian told the catapult story comes from one source, de Musi, who wasn't even there. But here's what we know. When Genoese survivors fled Kaffa by ship in 1347, they carried plague to Constantinople, then Messina. The timeline matches perfectly. But wait, there's a problem with the Kaffa story. A massive problem. Because when scientists dug up Black Death victims in London and Paris and extracted ancient Dina, they discovered something that shattered the Mongol siege theory entirely. In 2022, a bombshell study analyzed plague victims from across Europe, and they found something astonishing. Every single Black Death victim carried the exact same strain of Yersinia pestis. One strain, one source, one moment of emergence. This wasn't a disease that evolved slowly across continents. This was a single spark that ignited a continent-wide firestorm. And that spark likely came from somewhere no historian expected. In 2019, Dina evidence pointed to a remote region near the Volga River in Russia. But in 2022, a new study of 800-year-old graves in Kyrgyzstan pinpointed the exact village where it began. Yet even that may not be the full story. Because the ultimate origin remains one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. Here's the terrifying truth. We still don't know what triggered the Black Death's catastrophic emergence. Plague bacteria existed for millennia. But something changed in the 1340s. A perfect storm of climate shifts, rodent population explosions, and human vulnerability converged and unleashed hell. New research suggests a climate anomaly caused rodent populations to explode just before 1346. More rodents leads to more fleas, leads to more human contact. But why then? Why not 1330? Or 1360? The trigger remains unknown. What makes the Black Death uniquely terrifying is its mortality rate. 50–60% of infected Europeans died. Modern bubonic plague? 10% with treatment. This strain was different, more virulent, or perhaps medieval Europeans had zero immunity. We may never know, but the greatest mystery isn't where it started. It's why it stopped. Because after killing 50 million people, half of Europe, the Black Death didn't vanish. It went underground. And it's still with us today. Waiting. The dead didn't just vanish. They transformed civilization. With half the population gone, labor became precious, serfs demanded wages, women inherited property, the feudal system shattered overnight, peasants burning manor records, wage riots in Florence, first labor strikes in history, the church lost its grip. How could God allow this? Science began its slow rise, art turned darker, obsessed with death. And in this trauma, the seeds of the Renaissance were planted. Europe didn't just survive the Black Death. It was remade by it. The path to our modern world runs straight through those mass graves. This isn't ancient history. In August 2025, health officials confirmed a human plague case in New Mexico. Every year, 1,000–3,000 plague cases still occur globally. And in 2024, the WHO added plague to its list of priority diseases requiring urgent research. Plague never left. It circulates in rodent populations worldwide. Climate change is expanding rodent habitats. The conditions that sparked the Black Death, they could re-emerge. Which brings us to the final, chilling question no documentary dares ask. If a Black Death-level pandemic hit today, would we be ready? Or would we repeat the same horrors? Abandonment, scapegoating, societal collapse. We tell ourselves we've conquered plague, antibiotics, science, progress. But the Black Death's true lesson wasn't about medicine. It was about humanity. 2020 empty streets, 1348 empty streets. Pea shortages plague doctor masks. Conspiracy theories Jews blamed for Black Death WN catastrophe strikes. We don't become angels. We become afraid. We look for someone to blame. We abandon the sick. The Black Death didn't just kill bodies. It exposed the fragility of civilization itself. That child died alone 677 years ago. No name, no grave marker, just bones in the earth. But their death changed the world. Their suffering echoes in every labor right you enjoy, every medical advance you trust, every moment you take for granted that tomorrow will come. The Black Death began as a mystery. It ended as a transformation. And its final secret